Let's dive into the latest episode of Star-Crossed Souls.
Today, we are unpacking a really fascinating archive, specifically the Tone 1 Phrase 4 text.
Right, which operates at this incredibly dense intersection of esoteric theology, quantum mechanics, and linguistic evolution.
It really does. And our mission here isn't just to recap what's on the page for you.
No, definitely not. We are going to decode the underlying mechanics of how human beings attempt to archive the universe.
Whether that's through stone, through speech, or, through the very cells in our bodies.
Exactly. But to truly grasp the intellectual heights this material reaches, we really have to start by grounding you in the punishing physical reality of the source material.
Yes, I want you to picture the relentless, just grueling incline of Mount Iwato. This isn't, a gentle hike.
Not at all.
It is a near vertical succession of treacherous stone steps, bare tree roots, and just rough rock piled haphazardly.
And we're following Kaho, who is a publisher and a priestess of the water goddess, and she stands at just 156 centimeters.
Right, and at this point in the text, her legs are entirely destroyed from climbing 808 steps the previous day.
Just a brutal physical toll.
Oh, completely. So to survive this, she resorts to highly specific theological appeals to the stone Buddhas lining the path.
Which is such an interesting detail, because she isn't just tossing out generic prayers. There's a tactical precision to it.
Absolutely. She's operating on a deep architectural understanding of Japanese Buddhism. She prays to Kannon for infinite mercy, simply to ease her burning muscles.
And then she prays to Seishi for profound wisdom, right? Which is maybe just her trying to figure out the geometric angle of her next step.
Exactly. And when she hits her absolute physical limit, she bypasses the bodhisattvas entirely and prays to Amiya, the Buddha who guides souls to the Pure Land.
Wow.
She's essentially asking for salvation. It's a brilliantly authentic moment of human exhaustion.
And the contrast with her climbing partner is just staggering here. You have Kaho begging for divine intervention, and right behind her is Kai.
Right, Kai, who is 186 centimeters, half Welsh, half Japanese, a former plasterer turned astrophotographer.
And he's carrying this massive equipment bag that looks like a literal plastered wall on his back. But he is completely unbothered by the gravity of the mountain.
Unfazed. While Kaho appeals to the cosmos, Kai operates purely in the realm of biology and chemistry.
Yeah, he effortlessly tosses her a calorie mate and a bottle of lemon rehydration water with Hakata salt.
So specific.
It is. And he points out that she didn't bother to read the contour lines on the topographical map, and then just pragmatically supplies the magnesium and citric acid her muscles are screaming for.
It's the perfect baseline. Because you have to feel the sheer frictional weight of that earthly struggle before the environment gives way to what becomes a breathtaking intellectual summit.
Right, because the physical ascent eventually breaks. They clear the tree line.
Yes, and suddenly, this claustrophobic vertical struggle opens into a massive panoramic view of the Weenie Plain and Lake Biwa.
And right there, visible in the distance, are the physical ruins of Azuchi Castle, built by the warlord Oda Nobunaga.
Which triggers an incredible associative leap in the text. We pivot from the physical architecture of stone castles to the architecture of words.
I love this transition.
It's brilliant. Kai looks at the remnants of Nobunaga's massive stone fortress and connects it to Nobunaga's contemporary over in Elizabethan England, William Shakespeare.
Right.
Think about what Nobunaga tried to do. He attempted to build permanence out of physical rock, constructing a tower to reach the heavens, which, as we see, ultimately fell to ruin and decay.
Gravity always wins with stone.
Exactly. But Shakespeare, however, built an architecture of words. By anglicizing Latin, taking foreign roots and engineering them into English, Shakespeare invented over 1,700 new words.
Which is staggering to think about.
He constructed a tower out of pure language that still stands today.
But, here's the thing about structural engineering. Every architectural structure, whether it's made of granite or grammar, requires a foundational framework to remain standing. Right, and for Shakespeare, that conceptual bedrock was the music of the spheres. This is a theory proposed by the ancient Greek philosopher Pythagoras,
who we usually just reduce to the guy who figured out triangle hypotenuses for our high school math tests.
Exactly, the a squared plus b squared guy. But fundamentally, Pythagoras was a tuner of the universe.
How exactly do you tune the universe?
So Pythagoras conducted these experiments with a monochord, which is just a single vibrating string. He discovered that if you pluck a string and then have its length and pluck it again, you get an exact octave, a a 2-to-1 ratio.
Yeah.
He realized that mathematical ratios govern musical harmony. But he didn't stop there. He hypothesized that these exact same mathematical ratios governed the orbital dynamics of the planets.
That the celestial spheres were literally humming in a cosmic chord.
Precisely. And Shakespeare took that strict Pythagorean mathematical harmony and translated it into the structural rhythm of his poetry. Iambic pentameter is, in a way, an attempt to write in the rhythm of planetary orbits.
Which makes Kaho's reaction in the text so wildly funny to me.
Oh, that's great.
She possesses this staggering depth of historical knowledge, yet when presented with this profound cosmic geometry, she just looks at Kai and asks, is he the bloke with the isosceles triangles?
It's a great moment of friction, but I actually want to push back on Kai's premise here for a second.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
I struggle with this idea of an eternal architecture of words. In hard physics, we know that no structure in a closed system is truly eternal because of entropy.
Right, things fall apart.
Systems lose energy, they degrade over time, and language does exactly the same thing. Meanings shift drastically over centuries, pronunciations mutate, cultural context just evaporates.
That's very true.
So if you look at Shakespeare's linguistic tower, is it truly eternal? Or are we merely looking at a fossilized frequency, essentially a dead radio signal from the Elizabethan era that we're desperately trying to tune our modern receivers to catch?
I'm really glad you brought up entropy, because that concept of decay is the exact hinge this narrative swings upon next. Well, if the spoken language degrades, the physical vessel decays even faster. Kai brings this right to the forefront. He fuses Western and Eastern philosophies of deterioration perfectly.
Right.
He quotes Shakespeare's description of the human body as a muddy vesture of decay, and he seamlessly aligns it with Matsuo Basho's famous haiku regarding the ruined dreams of warriors.
It's an incredibly bleak worldview. Kai seems to operate entirely within the Japanese aesthetic of mujikan, or impermanence.
Yes, exactly.
He looks at his own body, at Kaho, at humanity, and he basically just sees lumps of mud strictly bound by gravity.
And because he knows this mud will inevitably crumble, dry out, and return to the earth, he harbors this tragic, desperate imperative to capture it.
Which ties directly into his photography.
Precisely. Think about his profession. As an astrophotographer, his entire existence is a defensive maneuver against time. He is trying to snatch a fraction of a second and permanently burn it onto his camera sensor as light.
He wants to lock eternity into a digital matrix before the physical mud collapses completely.
Yes. But Kaho completely rejects that premise, doesn't she?
She does, and it's a brilliant pivot.
She executes a breathtaking intellectual countermove. She doesn't deny the reality of the mud. She doesn't pretend gravity isn't real. But she recontextualizes the decay through the Buddhist virtue of Oda.
The paradigm of the lotus?
Yes, the lotus, which remains unstained by the mud. She points out a fundamental biological truth. The lotus flower requires mud to bloom. In fact, the deeper and darker the mud, the more magnificent the flower it produces.
So she essentially alters the variable of mud from a symbol of entropy to a symbol of potential energy.
Exactly. And she anchors this in the geological reality right beneath their boots on the mountain. She references the ancient Lake Biwa group.
The clay strata.
Right. This is the clay left behind by the lake's slow migration across the landscape over 4 million years. That ancient mud didn't just decay into useless dust. It became the vital blueprint and foundation for the rich cultural traditions of Iga and Shigaraki pottery.
It's a beautiful connection.
Kaho argues that humans didn't put on these heavy, muddy dresses of flesh just to stare up and envy the sky. We put on the mud to put down roots.
We descended into this intense gravity well to experience the specific frequencies of love and pain that can only be processed on this earth.
Yes. She even identifies the lake, Mizuumi, linguistically as a water birth, describing its 460 rivers as a network of capillaries circulating the planet's pulse.
The Earth as a living circulatory system. Let's frame Kaho's perspective for the listener for a second.
Please do.
Imagine you are a gardener looking at a massive decaying log in a forest. If you have Kai's worldview, you see only the death of a tree. You see a structure failing under gravity, yielding to entropy.
Right.
But if you have Kaho's perspective, you look at that exact same rotting log and you see the precise, necessary fuel for a highly complex new ecosystem. You see the breeding ground for fungi, insects, and new saplings.
The decay isn't a failure state.
No, it's the ignition sequence for the next phase of life.
I really love that analogy. And if the mud is the fuel, if it's the storage medium for life, It forces us to ask a really profound question about data preservation.
Right.
How does the universe actually store its blueprints?
Right, which leads us directly into the mechanics of archiving.
Kaho introduces a fascinating historical precedent here. The Portuguese missionary João Rodrigues, who compiled the Nippo Jisho, the Japanese-Portuguese dictionary, in 1603.
Okay.
Rodrigues and his fellow missionaries possessed an obsessive, driving need to record the precise spoken language of the Japanese. But why? It wasn't just for casual conversation.
They're trying to convert people.
Right, they needed to transmit a highly specific theological signal, the Word of God. If the translation degraded, the theology degraded. In their desperation to lock down the language, they inadvertently became master archivists.
Archiving the linguistic tower.
Yes. They preserved microscopic beta points of linguistic evolution, like the phonetic shift from P sounds to F sounds in that era. They documented how words like fauna for flower or fido for person were spoken. They were meticulously cataloging the data of human speech.
Let's explode that concept using hard physics, specifically the quantum information theory proposed by Oxford physicist Professor Vlatko Vedral.
Let's do it.
Because this completely shifts the paradigm of what Rodrigues was actually doing. Vedral posits that the foundational building block of the universe is not light, and it is not matter. The universe is made entirely of information.
Wait, slow down. How can a physical universe be made of something as abstract as information?
Well, in quantum mechanics, information is physical. It is the resolution of uncertainty. Everything you see around you, matter, energy, the chair you're sitting on, is just a secondary manifestation of underlying data.
Okay.
Think about the smartphone in your pocket. The photos and texts on it aren't physical objects. They are arrangements of binary data on a hard drive. Under Vedral's theory, the universe is a gigantic quantum computer. DNA is essentially a biological hard drive, engineered to continually transmit complex data packages through the intense environmental noise of the physical world.
And this scientific reality is what forces a profound realization in Kai. He understands his true role in this system.
Which is what?
If the universe is a quantum computer, then an archivist, whether it's Shakespeare writing sonnets, João Rodrigues cataloging phonetics, or Kaho praying on a mountain, is essentially a photo technician.
I see.
They are pulling the massive memory of the universe's quantum computer and burning it onto papyrus or canvas or a camera sensor. They are using water to fix the mud of this earth into a permanent readable record.
That's incredible.
It's why a quote from The Little Prince, "What is essential is invisible to the eye," acts as a chemical catalyst for Kai in this scene. It literally develops a suppressed childhood memory inside the dark room of his mind.
The data was always there, stored in his internal strata. It just required the right frequency to become legible. I look at this system and I see Kai and Kaho operating as human modems. They are standing on this mountain, surrounded by the Earth's cooling engine, desperately trying to demodulate and translate the frequency of the cosmos into a readable format before the physical signal degrades.
Kai realizes he's trying to develop 4 million years of heavy memories of water and mud through his camera lens.
But this high-level theoretical discussion is violently interrupted by the physical reality of the mountain.
It is. A sudden torrential downpour shatters their intellectual expanse. The environment collapses, forcing them instantly into a localized, highly enclosed reality.
The sky just opens up on them.
It does, and the text paints a masterpiece of sensory isolation. The 186-centimeter Kai immediately strips off his lightweight barber wax jacket and uses it to pin the 156-centimeter Kaho against the sheer granite rock face,
shielding her entirely from the deluge.
Exactly. The vast panorama of Lake Biwa is replaced by pitch blackness under the coat. The sensory details become overwhelmingly dense.
The smell of the mountain rain?
Yes, violently mixing with the wax oil of the barber jacket, layered with the bitter aroma of Kai's coffee. And beneath all of that atmospheric noise, the only auditory signal Kahu can register is the heavy thud-thud of Kai's heartbeat, transmitting directly through his dark gray Adidas sports undershirt.
Let's analyze the mechanics of Kai's reaction here. He tells her, "I won't stand for the subject I'm developing getting smudged with muddy water."
A phenomenal line.
We cannot misinterpret this action. This is not chivalry. This is not a polite gesture of offering an umbrella.
No, not at all.
This is a predatory, violently overprotective instinct to guard the data source he is trying to process. The attraction drawing them together in this moment operates purely on the level of quantum entanglement. What we are observing is an undeniable magnetic resonance between two complex data systems.
Pull is absolute. She's pressed against the wet rock, surrounded by his physical barrier, completely severed from the external world.
Consider the actual physics of the barber jacket in this scene. That waxed canvas is operating as a literal Faraday cage.
A Faraday cage.
Yeah, for those who might not know, a Faraday cage is an enclosure made of conductive material that blocks external electromagnetic fields. It redistributes the electrical charge so that it cancels out any interior fields.
Ah, I see where you're going with this.
By wrapping her in that heavy wax jacket, Kai has built an insulator. He has blocked out all external atmospheric noise, all the chaotic variables of the storm, all the visual data of the horizon.
Leaving only the two of them.
Inside that dark enclosed space, the signal-to-noise ratio drops to absolute zero. Their internal frequencies have nowhere else to dissipate. The isolation forces their magnetic resonance to undeniably align. All that's left is the pure transmission of data between the two of them.
And yet, even inside this perfect dark isolation, a single ray of light pierces through the storm cloud.
Just a single ray.
It acts as a projector, illuminating a final critical enigma on the wet granite wall right behind them.
The light reveals a line engraving of the Bodhisattva Kokuzu. Now we see historical data converging with celestial mechanics. This specific deity, representing boundlessly vast space, connects directly to Kukai, the historical figure often called the Da Vinci of the East.
He was a fascinating figure.
Kukai was a master of civil engineering, linguistics, and esoteric theology. The lore states that while Kukai was invoking this exact bodhisattva to download the ultimate truth of the universe, he literally swallowed the heliacal rising of Venus.
For context, a heliacal rising is when a star or planet becomes briefly visible just before sunrise, after a period of being hidden behind the sun.
And Kukai ingested that celestial data point into his physical vessel.
The physical mud of the human body consuming the mathematical light of the cosmos.
Exactly.
But looking at this engraving, Kaho's deeply ingrained intuition as an archivist sounds a sharp, piercing warning bell. There is a glaring mathematical discrepancy staring them in the face.
The numbers don't add up.
They don't. She realizes that the fundamental architecture of the universe operates on perfect 12s. We track 12 months in a year. We chart 12 zodiac signs in the heavens.
Pythagoras' music of the spheres is built on 12 musical notes in a chromatic scale.
Right. 12 is the perfect harmonious cyclical number that constitutes a closed system.
It's the mathematical baseline of reality.
Exactly. So the chilling question emerges. If the universe operates on 12, why are there 13 Buddhas enshrined on this specific mountain?
That is the question.
The very name of the mountain is intrinsically tied to these 13 deities. What does that extra integer represent? It breaks the Pythagorean harmony. It defies the established architecture of the spheres.
It's a mathematical anomaly injected into the system, a ghost in the machine. And it leaves you wondering, what modern 13th ciphers exist in our current technological blueprints?
It's a terrifying thought.
As we build our own linguistic towers and massive data centers, what blind spots are hiding in our code, patiently waiting to trigger the next evolutionary leap or collapse?
As she stands trapped in the dark beneath that wax jacket, listening to the heavy thud of Kai's heart, the concept of the 13 cosmic ciphers begins to flicker violently in her mind.
The tension is incredible.
It is a mystery that threatens to rewrite the entire blueprint they have just uncovered. I am experiencing an intense, quiet anticipation to see what this profound alignment will reveal. The tension of this enigma is absolute, and I will be waiting exactingly for next Friday's update to see how this magnetic resonance shifts their trajectory.
Letters by letter, volume by volume, this extraordinary duo is ready to lift the veil. The Chronos archive is now open. Let the great tuning begin. Star-crossed souls.